Tracks. Let's talk music.
Hi, it's Robbie from Chatting Tracks. How you doing? Thanks for joining me on this live broadcast. Hope you're doing really well out there. Thanks for joining my little channel, Talking About Music. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and it's always a pleasure to chat about music. So, mystery record, what is it? So, I've got this calendar. I'm going to show you. Hang on. I got this calendar that came from it. Oh, hello. I'm over here now. Hello, hello, hello. There we go. Live. You can't beat it. Anyway, I got this calendar for Christmas, which looks like this, and it's got 100 records on it. That are, you basically scratch it off, and then what you do is you find out what record it is, and the idea is you listen to that record, and you find something new, and then you discover something you've never heard before. So I thought, what a great way to make videos and have a lot of fun. Now, I'm not on my own on this one. I've got the wonderful Johnny Alexander from the Tech Age Guy, who's got a fantastic TikTok channel. We'll put links in the description so you can find that as well. John's a great guy. He's going to be on in 1 second. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the record on the calendar each week or every fortnight and basically find out what record we're going to be listening to this week. So I'm doing it on a Sunday, and we're going to know about it pre-hand, and then afterwards you're going to find out, and you can join us on this journey. And if it's one of your favorite records, hit us up in the comments and let us know about it a little bit more. Anyway, today I'm joined for the wonderful John Alexander. Hello, sir. How are you? Hang on, let me switch the scene. There we go. How are you, mate?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Robbie?
That's fantastic. Just loads of tech stuff in the intro, as ever. We rehearsed it all and it all goes wrong, but I'm fine.
Never fails, does it?
Anyway, you're all the way from across the pond. Whereabouts are you?
I am in the great state of South Carolina, of course, in the good old country, USA. Anybody, if you've heard anything of this area where I'm from, it would probably be the Clemson Tigers, the great college football team. So I'm near there. That's probably the easiest thing to research is Clemson.
Fantastic. And what's the weather like you got over there? Because we've got brilliant sunshine in England at the minute.
It is in the 70s, overcast and rainy. So good sleeping weather.
It's nice when it swaps around because we've got lovely sunshine. So it's
yeah,
nice.
I think your weather blew this way.
That's right. Yeah.
So thanks for that.
So John, talk to us about your TikTok channel for 1 second.
Yeah. Well, as you know, you and I, we've been talking for a couple years now and trying to break in this whole content creation thing. And I was kind of starting off with podcasting, if you remember. But, you know, we talked about just a few weeks ago, and I was still trying to figure out what was my niche, what I wanted to do. And it finally hit me. It's all the behind the scenes of creating, whether it's a channel, a podcast, what have you. It's all the gear and equipment. So what I do on my TikTok channel, and I just started a brand new YouTube also, both under the Tech Age, but it's reviewing different products, different types of tech gadgets, audio, video. My TikTok is geared more towards buying stuff off of the TikTok shop. And then I do a review about it. But of course, I'll do other things too. And the YouTube, I'm going to get a little more in depth about audio, video gear, how to use it and how to create that type of thing.
Fantastic, because I'm useless at all that stuff. As you saw from the intro, it all just went wrong straight away. Anyway, we're going to do mystery record. Obviously, John knows what's going on. We're going to talk about the record, which was underneath the scratchy part. What do you call those scratchy things? I don't know what they're called, but it was underneath that anyway. But before we start, we do have an intro. Shall we watch the intro for mystery record?
Let's do it.
There we go, a bit of glamour. Okay, so this week's mystery record we're going to look at is Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, an absolute classic. So, John, let's talk about Pink Floyd. Do you listen to a lot of Pink Floyd? Do you know a lot of Pink Floyd?
You're going to love this one, dude. I have never listened to a Pink Floyd song in my life. Never.
No way. That can't be right. Not even accidentally you've ever heard one, no. Not
even accidentally. If something come on the radio, if it wasn't something I already knew, I immediately changed. I don't want to listen to that. I'm very set in my ways generally when it comes to my music.
Right, that's fair enough. So a couple of facts about it before we talk about it. So Dark Side of the Moon was the 8th album by Pink Floyd. It was released 1st March 1973 in the US, and we got it on March the 16th, 73 in the UK. So you're talking early 70s there. Most of it was recorded at Abbey Road Studios. We'll talk about that in a second. It was produced by Alan Parsons, but also I think it's Chris Williams. It was the other guy that came in and did a bit of it as well. It's considered one of the most influential albums of all time, of course. And the concept explores life, death, time, greed, mental illness, and human struggles, which I can understand because it's an amazing concept. So, Dark Side of the Moon, as it's the first time you ever heard it, talk me through your journey of that album. Did you like it? Did you not like it? There's lots of elements. How did you feel about the whole thing?
It was not what I was expecting. And again, some people are probably going to laugh when I say this, but I kind of categorize groups, and most of anything come out of the 70s, I don't want to listen to it. I thought it just sounds old and bad. But I was very surprised. It caught me off guard. It wasn't hard and heavy or anything like that. I liken it to come home after a hard day, turn all the lights out, hit your favorite chair, lay your head back and close your eyes and hit the switch and turn it on. And
Yeah.
just kind of sit there and relax a little bit.
I
But
mean,
it actually was it wasn't nowhere near as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
what was your like conceptions before that? Because the album cover's quite vague. There's nothing on it really, apart from the prism and the light. So, did you have an idea what the album might have been before you even played it?
Absolutely not. I was expecting it to be a whole bunch of like Blair and loud noise and stuff. Again, I've never listened to them, so I just assumed and categorized it's probably going to be something just a lot of noise I don't want to listen to.
That's amazing. Let's talk about the album cover for 1 second. Before we went live, I discovered I've got 4 copies of this album, which I didn't know I had. So I've got one that's got
Good
the
Lord.
original stickers on it that came with it, because it came with stickers and a couple of posters.
Oh wow!
I've got that one that's on there as well. I'll put that down there. Oh no, my camera's jumping everywhere. I've got to fix that. Okay. This is this is live, folks, so you can't moan about it. Then I've just got another one with the original sticker on it saying Dark Side of the Moon. There we go.
Cool.
And then I've got another live one somewhere. So this one is really special to me because I went to Abbey Road. I think it's 10 years ago now. And Alan Parsons, the guy we mentioned, produced the album. And he was talking about it, and he signed the actual rainbow for me. I don't know if you can see it there.
Oh wow,
He signed the
dude, that
rainbow,
is so
yeah.
cool.
And it was one of those surreal days where it was in Abbey Road Studio 2, which was the Beatles studio. And he had the original mixing desk that they used to mix the album. And he had, I mean, it's all computerized now, but runs through the original, 1960s equipment. But he mixed it live in front of us as well. And it was just amazing to have him in there. And then we went up to the recording booth, and he basically was chatting about, you can meet and greet, and he signed the vinyl for me. He was talking about Pink Floyd, and I said to him, Sid Barrett, did you notice that he was having problems? That there's the original singer. And he sort of said, not really. And I said, like, the band were already arguing at this point, pretty much what you read in books. Were they arguing? He's like, no, everything was fine. It was.
Oh
it just
wow.
happened. So yeah, it was an amazing day, and he signed that for me, and it was brilliant. So you listened to it, you enjoyed it. What's your impressions of it today? If it was released today, do you think it would work?
Oh my gosh, boy, that's a good question. It's oh man, I'm probably gonna get some blasting on this one. With the generation, I would say probably not.
Right.
But it's so hard because and I would assume a lot of people do the same thing, but you kind of look at something and you just automatically judge it.
Yeah.
And then it's like whether it's the album cover, whether it's the name, maybe you saw a commercial or just heard something about it and you automatically judge it, which, hey, I'll be the first to say that's exactly what I did. And I'm like, that's going to be one of those weird bands. They play weird stuff. I don't want to have anything to do with it. I think a lot of people nowadays, you kind of quick to jump on that type of bandwagon.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you just really just stop and try to listen to it, I was quite surprised. I really was. It was not what I was expecting.
Yeah, you're right. It has to be the whole package, because if you take the songs out sort of individually, if you don't know them, it wouldn't work, would it? That's the and it's the same of every album now, isn't it? If you don't listen to the whole thing, you don't get the message. This album has to be consumed in one big go, doesn't it? You can't. It's not like a singles album where you can take the bits and just leave the rest. You have to do the whole concept in one go. So you got to give up 47 minutes or whatever it is to.
And you just hit on something right there. And I've got to do my philosophical thing here. You and I growing up, the groups and band growing up, I listened to a ton of Bruce Springsteen. I was really into him. I liked Stevie Nicks after she left Fleetwood Mac. Whoa, please nobody get upset about that one. But the woman has an awesome voice. But Rick Springfield, Bryan Adams, people like that. But what we grew up with is just what you said. The album meant something from song to song to song. The whole thing had a meaning behind it.
Hmm.
Me personally, this day and time, I don't really think there's no such thing anymore. It's just like you said, a whole bunch of pop songs, and they're just trying to get listens or sell albums, that type of thing. I just don't think the same thing applies anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so it was recorded in Abbey Road between May 72 and January 73, and Alan Parsons did the sessions. What was interesting when we was talking to him about it, so we'll go through the songs in a minute, but on The Run, which is the one where the guy was running and panting and all that sort of stuff, what they did was they went to Studio 2 and they set up microphones at each end, he was telling us, and then they were recorded in running, an engineer running backwards and forwards. So it's he basically had to run up and down. So that's a real person with real breath on the album. And I think that's what makes it special, that you've got those human touches in there.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, because, I mean, like I was saying, it's 72, 73. So there's no computers. It's all got to be done manually. So instead of just getting some stock sort of stuff, they had to then just record this guy running up and down, losing. And I think he said they did 5 takes and he nearly passed out.
Poor guy got a workout.
So yeah. So let's talk about the running order for a moment. Did you like the running order of the album? Did it work for you?
Yeah, the very beginning of it, I'll be honest, when it first come on and started playing, I was just like, what in the world am I listening to here? Honestly, first thing to come to mind is I felt like I was in like a mid-70s space age movie or something. I was just waiting for something weird to start going on, but then the more the music started coming, it mellowed into it, and I'm like, this is funny. I'm a police officer where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
So when I listened to this the other night, I was working an extra duty job. We were sitting at a construction site because people love to steal construction equipment.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was listening to it. It was about 2:00 in the morning, and just put it on the phone and just kind of kick back in the dark and started listening to it. And I'm like, I could probably zone out to this, a little bit of psychedelic stuff going on there, and
I mean, probably
have a good night.
I'm going to sound like a real snob now, but I was on a cruise last year, and I was in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and I put it on then just to relax. It was mid-afternoon. It's kind of warm. The ocean was blue. And I thought, I'll just pop it on. And then I remember it started, because it starts with Speak to Me. And then next thing I know, it had finished. And I must have been staring at the sea for 40 minutes. And I just went. I was just gone. And I think that's the power of how that album works. It's got the consistency to do that. And it will take you on that journey. So the first track is Speak to Me, and it's created by the drummer Nick Mason, and it's got sounds of heartbeats on it, people talking and conversations like that. And I think that's the interesting part, because you've got that heartbeat that brings it in, which then comes back at the end of the song in Eclipse, that it draws you in, because you've got this heartbeat, and it kind of that draws you in, and you get these bits of sounds. Then you've got Breathe, which is when Dave Gilmour's really singing. You've got that floaty effect as well. Breathe in the air, all that sort of stuff. Right, it's really great how that draws you in, and then it just expands like that as well. So you don't know where you're going for a second, and it works as well. Does it sound, before we carry on, does it sound like a British album, or does it sound like an American album? Or could it only be a British band that could create that, do you think?
Ooh, that's kind of heavy. It, honestly, I wouldn't have thought British at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sound naive or narrow-minded, but it spoke 70s, and no doubt about it. This is a 70s album for sure.
Yeah.
But wouldn't have really thought anything different, in my opinion, until you hear him starting to sing, and you can tell there's a little bit of an accent there, so you can kind of pick that out.
Yeah.
But
what I should do is broaden the question too. Obviously, they're sort of upper class gentlemen that were highly schooled and things like that. They went to Oxbridge and all that sort of stuff, and Cambridge and stuff like that. So historically, through the music, do you think that could have been done in America? Because you don't really, you have Princeton, don't you, in America? But would it have worked if 4 gentlemen from there had gone through that and had created music? Do you think it would have had the same effect?
Probably not.
That's the right answer.
Probably not, because You know, think again, I haven't listened to a whole lot of music from that time frame, but at the same
Mm.
time, what I have picked up on, and even getting into the '80s when I really got into music, you can definitely tell a difference. That there's a difference in not just how they put it together, but even the music's. I mean, the musical instruments to me sound different.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can tell looking at it from that angle. I 100% agree. That wouldn't have been made here. No.
Oh, that's fair enough then. After that, you got On the Run, which was the track I just spoke about, where you got lots of electronic music and he was running up and down. That's fantastic as well. Then you've got the wonderful Great Gig in the Sky, and that's the part where the lady was singing the vocals and she did this vocal solo, which is absolutely amazing. So it turns out that she was they got her in for the session. I think she said it was Sunday afternoon. She came in, they just said do some stuff, and she's doing bits like like baby baby and like love love, and they said no, just vamp, just do what you want, so she did this vocal line which then becomes iconic, and it turns out she didn't know it was on there because she just got paid for the session, went home, and then
Oh wow.
it was only when she bought the record, because she saw a poster in the shop saying Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. She took it home, played it, and was like, actually that's me, that's amazing. So it's amazing how they just got her in and then just did this one little section. All of a sudden she's then created this iconic vocal line. It's absolutely amazing on that. And then we go on to probably the song which is the most famous off the album, I venture, would be Money, which was them basically singing about materialism and greed and cash registers, and you get that at the start, which is yet again they looped,
Yep.
which is incredible. So it's an interesting song, that, because they're talking about almost what they become after this album, because they become mega wealthy off of this album, and then they then become it's a contradiction of what happened earlier. Really, they were doing well, but then obviously this comes out, absolutely explodes. And then
Right.
what added, they sold 200,000 copies a year. That's what it still sells, apparently. So they're still raking
Wow.
in from that one point. So yeah, they're raking in a lot of money
Wow.
and it becomes iconic for them, which is interesting. Then after that, you've got Us and Them, which has got a lovely piano part and sax part by Dick Parry. He comes in and plays the sax on that. So you've then got, it's interesting because you've got two in musical sections on there as well. It's not just about the lyrics. It's almost like they go lyrics space, lyrics space, lyrics space. They sort of give you a bit of time just to think about what you just heard as well. It's
Yeah.
interesting that. Did you kind of
That's a
get
good
that
way to
from when
put it.
you listen to it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I actually kind of liked about this. It all just seemed to just continuously flow.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to, again, a lot of, British bands, that type of thing, but here we're just so used to a song stops. You've got you got to pause before the next one starts. But if that makes sense,
Mm.
this just flowed like from one thing through the next. And there's sometimes I'm like, am I still in the same song? What, because then like you said, the vocals would stop, and then the music seemed to go up or down, and then I was like, oh, okay, wait, we're still in the same song.
Yeah.
I actually liked that. I thought it was really cool. It was just almost felt like it never stopped playing from beginning to the end.
Yeah.
It just it was relaxing.
I mean, they said that due to the album, there's been 1,000 doobies rolled on that cover. So, like you say, because it's so relaxing. There are thousands of doobies rolled. I'm going to get banned for saying doobies now. Oh, well, never mind. It doesn't matter. Then after that, you got Any Color You Like, which is an I can't say the words now. Instrumental track between Us and Them. And then you've got Brain Damage, which is a really important song, hinting on Syd Barrett, the former singer's breakdown. I don't know if you know much about Syd Barrett, the original singer, but he had issues due to LSD, and it affected his mind. So they've said this is basically them touching on that. And the lyric, and if the dam breaks open many years too soon, which is basically what happened with him. He's a young guy. He got overloaded with acid and it just fried his brain, and he was never the same since. So
Wow.
they're sort of harking back to their old singer as well in the same album, which is a lovely little touch in there as well. And then it goes back round to Eclipse, which is the closing track. And that's where you've got those sound bites coming in, where it was like, I gave him a short, sharp shock, all that sort of stuff. And it turns out Paul McCartney did a part for that, but it seemed too rehearsed. So Macca, being the professional, because Wings were recording down the corridor. I think they were doing Venus and Mars. And I think they said to him, like, come in and do something. But I think Macca, being the ultimate professional, it was very clean. So they're like, oh, we can't really use that because it's, they wanted
That is
just quick
funny.
responses and off the cuff. They wanted that sort of thing. But he was very sort of, as he would be. He's an expert at what he does, isn't he? And it was too clean and stuff like that. They've never released the Macca stuff, which is a shame because I'd love to hear what he said about the subjects. So what they were doing was in that part, they were writing up, when was the last time you punched somebody? When was the last time you were drunk? And the idea was the people were just turning the cards and speaking the answer. And that's what was happening. So that's why it's kind of like, he was cruising for a bruising, but it was all people around Abbey Road at the time. So there's no outside people. It's just people that were there. They got brought in, which is really, really lovely as well.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Like when you look at the concept of how it got put together, that's really interesting as well. Syd Barrett's influence, the original singer, was all over this album. You can hear where they talk about insanity and madness, and that's obviously been dragged through as well. It was one of the first rock albums to use the EMS synthesizer as well, which you can hear all over it, like all that sort of stuff. You wouldn't get that with a guitar or a piano. That had to be a sequence of. So you're bringing in synthesizers into early prog rock as well. So you then got Yes coming in and on all these, and Rick Wakeman's solo stuff coming in as well after that. It was mixed in quadraphonic, which was an early 70s idea, which is basically 5.1. Today, we call it 5.1. But apparently it failed because it was too futuristic and people had to spend a lot of money. So it's 1973, 74. Your stereo is probably the price of a car. And they're going, add 2 more speakers and you can hear it in surround sound. So there's a few of those flying around that are worth a bit of money, but you couldn't really get it as well. And then there is the Dark Side of the Moon Rainbow theory, which is the Wizard of Oz. I don't know if you've heard this, but apparently right at the start, if you play, I think it's when you have the old MGM intro. I think it's when something hits, you then play the Wizard of Oz at the same time, and it would sync up to the first 47 minutes of the movie. So that's an idea that you've tried. Now there is a YouTube video that actually does this, and I'll try and find it, put a link in the description so people can see it. And it sort of works. It doesn't work. It does. Yeah. It kind of works as an idea, and it kind of doesn't work as an idea. It's very sort of hit and miss. But yeah, you can actually do both of those, but it doesn't really work. But let's talk about the cover for 1 second, because you've got the amazing, designed by Storm Thurgerson from Hypnosis. You got this brilliant cover. Why is the camera moving again? Hang on. Yeah, so you got this prism coming in and light coming out. Basic, bold, simple, really, really works, doesn't it? You know what it is. Now you know what this is. It works from the first viewing. What do you think?
And you're probably going to laugh at this too. That to me is a very iconic picture for an album. Everybody knows it. I mean, you see it, hey, that's Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
I've always thought that was a cool album cover, a cool picture. Never once struck my mind or my interest to maybe grab one and listen to it. But I always thought that was just the coolest thing. I loved it.
I did see, obviously we got the rainbow there. I'm going to go off subject a little bit. We've got the rainbow right here. I did see a post end of last year, and it said, it's finally great to see rock bands embracing LGBTQ quality, because you got the rainbow. And I was like, well, 50 years out, not the point, but you kind of get, if it works for them and they sell a bit more, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, why not?
Did they give a reason for that album cover or that picture? Did they say what it meant or what they wanted it to mean?
Well, if you look at all their album covers, they're never on it. So they don't want to be, the idea is, quite rightly, it's about the music rather than the cover. So they're not on any of the album covers, not any of them. So you've got Medal, which is the previous album, which has got like an EO underwater, and then you've got Animals, which is Battersea Power Station. So the idea is you don't know what the music is. It's about the cover. The band is about. It's about the music, and I think that's a great way of doing it. So it's just so they didn't want to be on the cover, so they were basically picking up slides. Hypnosis went this one, and that's all right, this one, and apparently this was the one that he wasn't interested in, and they put it up, and he was saying, I got this, and they went, that's the one. I mean, because it's the most interestingly vague one of all. I think you look at it, and you don't know what it is. It's kind of interesting. You've got that change on the front from the light to the prism as well, so you've got a lot of color coming out. So I just love the way they've done it. So I think it's great. I think it's great.
It's funny. I would be interested to know what different people in different generations, what they think that picture means, or what comes to mind when they first see it. Because to me, and of course now I'm thinking this because I've listened to it, but kind of like opening up. if that makes it opening, a concept, opening your mind up to all these different things. And you were talking about what all was covered over that album. So in hindsight, to me, well, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I would really be curious what other people think.
hit us up in the comments and let us know under the video what the cover means to you and what your favorite track is off that album as well. And is it your favorite Floyd album? Let us know with that as well. I'd love to know that as well. So the band played the album in its entirety from 1972 to 1975 tours. There was lots of bootlegs of that around. I've got one somewhere. It was brilliant, and they've cleaned it up now. Roger Waters did it for his solo tour. I managed to see Roger Waters 5 years ago, and he did a lot of Dark Side of the Moon, pretty much, and he did a lot of Animals, which is one of my favorite albums of theirs as well. What have we got on this bit as well? So I'm gonna hit you with facts now. Sorry, well they're meant to be facts anyway. So Dark Side of the Moon is a metaphor for mental illness and the human nature. So that's why the cover's so dark with light on it as well, because it's dark and shade. The album was played on the International Space Station in 2003. So it's been played into space as well, so which would make sense as well. It's Pink Floyd's most bootlegged album. So it's the most bootleg one of all their stuff and from live performances. So obviously you got Breathe at the start, and then at the end it's reprised as well. So you got time in there as well. The original album had stickers and posters. I showed you a few of those as well. It was the most profitable album of Pink Floyd for that point, which is why they got to make Wish You Were Here, which was the next album. So like I was saying earlier, they in money, they were basically saying like, wealth and all this sort of stuff. And it helped them finance the next album and made them incredibly rich in the meantime as well. I said it's held the longest time on the Billboard charts as well. I think it was 187 weeks. I've got that written down somewhere as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. It was on there for a long, long time. 741 weeks from 1973 to 1988. It was on the Billboard Top 200 chart. So it didn't actually dip for all that time. So it's one of the biggest selling records of all time as well. It's just done its 50th anniversary as well. There's been a few remasters of that as well. I just want to talk quickly about some of the other versions of the album that are available. So I think it was 20 years ago, Pink Floyd did a version of the album, so you had the original album remastered. Then under that, you had an alternative version of it because there was different versions of this album, and it was called the Immersion Mix. And it's one of those things where I'd heard this album many, many times, loved it many, many times. And then the Immersion Mix comes out and it just blew the original one to the side for a little while for me because I was so interested in it. So where you had Claire Torrey doing her huge vocal line, that scatting she was doing across that track, that was removed. And they had I think it's the Apollo 9 moon landings instead. So you had this wonderful music with a slide guitar going, and it goes, we're coming into land. And they used the drama of the landing in that record. And you're kind of going at some points, is that better than the original now? Because it's completely different. Oh. So you're going, no, wow, it's amazing. And there's a few bits and bobs, like there was effects missing and there was different bits where people were running around or they weren't running around and stuff like that. So it's slightly different in that sense. But it's such an interesting version of the album. It's like a completely separate album, if you know what I mean. So it's its own album, but it's still the same album. It's a hard way of listening to it. And then you kind of go, wow, I wonder if they took this bit and they mixed it together, would it have made it a stronger album? No, they were right to do what they did. Absolutely 100%. I'm not going to backtrack and say, no, they should have done this. They didn't. They got it absolutely bang on. But it's an amazing version of the album. So it's called the Immersion Mix. I don't think you can find it on Spotify. I did look for it as well, but I can't seem to find it anywhere. But if you've got that box set, hit us up in the comments and let me know what you think of that mix. It's fantastic. Then 2 or 3 years ago, they released this version of it, which is it's a live album of it. So I think this is from early 1973. So that's why the cover's different. It's like an artwork version of it because it's the early version of the album live before they started playing it properly. And then you obviously had the original. So this is a live version of it. This is on Spotify. So we'll put links to this as well so you can hear this version of it. This is amazing considering it was not really released and they were working through it. It's an amazing album to listen to. It's brilliant. It's a really good live version of the album, and it's so close to the album you wouldn't think it wasn't being played on a cassette. That's how close it is as well. You got the backing singers on there as well, and you can hear their harmonies a lot clearer than in the album. And when they hit that live, that's amazing as well. That's definitely worth checking out.
Well, I will have to check it out myself now.
We will. We'll have links to all this stuff in Spotify once the live broadcast is done. We'll put all the stuff in there as well. And if you listen to this a year from now, it's just below you. Anyway, there it is. So that's just our brief chat about Dark Side of the Moon. Would you listen to it again, John? Would you not really bother with it, or would you, is it a no, I've heard it now kind of album?
Yeah, oh yeah, I would definitely, and I'm sure most people are like this. It takes a few listens to understand it all, catch everything, pick up on everything. So yeah, I think here soon we'll hit a turn all the lights out, maybe a couple RGB lights going, and hit the favorite reading chair and listen to it. I want to check out the, what did you call it? The immersion,
The immersion mix.
that version.
Yeah.
I would really like to catch up with that, but you said it's hard to find, or
Well, it was on the box set. I can't seem to find it on Spotify, but it doesn't mean they won't
oh,
release it at some point. So what we'll have to do is, if anyone's got a copy with a link, send it to our comment box, and then John can hear it, and also anyone else that's watching can find it as well. It'll be
yeah,
on there. So now, obviously, like you said, this is the first time you've heard Pink Floyd. And this album. So what I was going to do originally was say, was there an album you would think should have gone on the list so far? But I can't ask you that because it's your first time with Floyd. If I may indulge, I'll do it myself though. So this is Animals. This is the album after Wish You Were Here. So it went Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, and then this album. Now this album I absolutely love. This is the remaster version from 2 years ago. And it's their version of punk at the time, I suppose, because punk was coming through, and they were called Dinosaurs. Pink Floyd. They were like, who listens to those dinosaur bands? And this was the album that came through after that. And I think this is really interesting because it's really raw. They recorded it in their own like their own recording spaces where they recorded it as well. So it's got a different sound to then it's not as clean sounding as well because they
oh
recorded it in
wow,
their own rehearsal room and things like that, their own studio. And it's basically it's called Animals because it's based on George Orwell's book. So you got tracks like Sheep, Pigs on a Wing, and it basically talks about money and corruption and wealth and things like that. And it talks about class and bits and bobs like that. You know, every Pink Floyd album comments socially somewhere. And this album, I think, is the most socially aware and social concept album they've ever released because it's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, so that would be my recommendation if we could have it on this list. If it's not on the list already, because it's a mystery list, that would be the one that I would definitely put on there. I think it's an incredible album and it should be played. We'll put links in the description to that album as well so people can find out about that. So before we go, John, we need to say to people, you know, let us know in the comments what your favorite album is by Pink Floyd, your favorite single. Have you seen them live as well? We'd love to know that as well because that'd be absolutely fantastic. If you can subscribe to this channel so we can talk about music a lot more, that'd be great. And subscribe to John's TikTok channel as well. We'll have links for that in the description because you want a bit on there as well. And thanks for joining us on our journey through Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon on Mystery Record, our new concept and idea. And we shall be back in a couple of weeks with a new record for you as well. So look out for the logo, the Mystery Record logo, and we'll have you on there. John, thanks for joining us. As ever, we'll see you on the next one. But it's been an absolute pleasure. So thanks for joining us today.
absolutely, dude. This was so much fun. I can't wait to do this again. This is cool.
We will. We'll be back in roughly 2 weeks with a new record. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next one. Say goodbye, John.
Thank you. See y'all. Have a great week.